Greetings, welcome to Terra Prime Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about going through physical challenges. And actually joining me here on the panel today, we've got a group of our learners and exiles here, our apprentices. So we'll be hearing from them throughout, and hopefully some other people will be joining us tonight. Darth Anonymous here from Terra Prime headquarters. We'll go through the line here. We've got Michael up there with the River City Jedi. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well.
All right. Okay. And our newest apprentice, Celine, from also from Canada.
Yes, also from Canada.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me, Master.
And of course, Orinthia, our regular contributor.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is the physical challenges with essentially martial arts, and in our case, sabering. One of course, our goals and things that is really important to us here is to help facilitate healthy lifestyles and get people exercising and doing stuff that's active and fun and everything like that. And this is a great way to do it and exercise some creativity, have have a little bit of a fantasy time, all of that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun, and it gets people who are generally ambivalent, at least, again, with most exercise or organized sports, that kind of thing. Then, of course, you have people who are have a disability. Either they have an old injury or something like that, and they have physical limitations. And so we're going to be kind of addressing that kind of thing, getting people to kind of see this as an exercise lifestyle type of thing, but also not to know that you will always kind of start and move up. So it's always kind of a work in progress. But that work in progress is kind of difficult. So we'll go through some things that will hopefully help that goal. So, like we said, like I started saying, one of our goals is to bring that out to people, and Star Wars fans, and people like us, this little tribe that we have, historically speaking, have not been big in the whole exercise fitness thing. That, of course, is changing now. We're getting a lot more people from a lot of different walks of life into fandom and into all of these kinds of things. So that's kind of good. But generally speaking, and I know I have seen this through our 3 years going through here, is that we get a lot of people who are coming into this, and this is their first kind of foray into either into the martial arts or even into organized exercise and activity. And so that can bring, obviously some challenges. Now, the first type of challenge that's going to come up here, and obviously we'll talk about here with the apprentices, is everybody is going to have physical fitness challenges. We're all, especially if we're coming into something new, there's always going to be some physical thing that's going to take us a little bit longer to get into ourselves or really understand or apply in a useful way. So why don't I bring it out, starting there, because that's we'll touch on that, but we're going to go to things that are a little bit more limiting, right? Because these first challenges, you'll see, very, very fixable. So these aren't, I don't really I mean, they are challenges, and this stuff is really challenging, and just getting fit can be a very, very challenging endeavor. What I mean for this, physical challenges, as we see, is stuff that's a little bit more serious, or a little bit more, as we say, morbid to your life, meaning it's having a negative impact on your life. General fitness, we want to bring up, that can also be challenging. So why don't I just open it up to you guys down there, and some experiences with that. If you've, I know you've all been in it kind of for various lengths of time here. Give a little background. Does anybody have anything to add on that topic there?
Yeah, I have been a member of Terra Prime for, I'd say, going on almost 2 years now. And I know that at the beginning I was really excited about, having an opportunity to do lightsaber work and learn a martial arts style through it. And I realized just how out of shape I was. And I've been out of the Marine Corps since 2001, and I haven't exactly taken care of myself. So I got a little big. I'm a pretty big guy. I'd say I'm 6 foot tall and just over 300, which makes me have some issues. All right, I'm not as spry as I used to be. And learning the lightsaber, the first thing that I like is like, all right, now you need to move your feet and make it move this way. And I'm trying to do this, and I'm realizing just how in shape would have helped me learn these out of shape things. And it's been an evolving function to get back into shape. And I just got back from the fitness center 10 minutes ago before this show started. So getting back into shape, and I would say it's all for the saber, but it's really just for me. But the saber really helps. It gives me that motivation. It gives me something to take with me and to use and to learn. And it becomes that ambition to help you get better fit. I'm losing weight. I'm feeling better than I ever have before. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, very good. Throw it out there.
I guess I can take it. Before I really discovered Terra Prime, I was mostly a soccer player, so I was actually in really good, at least cardio shape. But as I guess same thing kind of happened to Robert. You get out of it. You're not playing competitively anymore, and of course your fitness level just drops. And I know, especially for those who are somewhat familiar with me joining kendo, it just being in a hot dojo and then all of a sudden just brick wall as far as being out of cardio shape is concerned. But also, I think we discussed this on Facebook, and also like I had a flexibility concern, especially with my feet, because I have my feet open up at about a 30-degree angle, and trying to increase flexibility. And that actually that face the wall squat has been just in the past few days has been quite the boom for getting my legs back to where I want them, because I remember playing soccer competitively, having my toe out, or duck footed, I think is the common term for it, was just wasn't really an issue. And I noticed, especially learning kendo and actually having the main stance, having your feet parallel and pushing, was just a big thing. That having my feet bend was just it was just really being amplified. How little things can throw you off.
Right, and there's a couple of issues with that. I mean, a lot of people come from other arts. Now, of course, both of you, when you stop anything, and here's a little secret for everybody: if you see those weight loss before and after pictures, how they get around the lying thing is what they do is they find like an athlete who's been injured and they're on the bench, right? And you gain weight, right? Especially if you're an athlete, especially if you're a working athlete, because you're burning all those calories during the day, and then all of a sudden you're injured and you're on the bench and you're not burning those calories, and you balloon up. Well, they find those guys just as they're getting off of the bench. They say, hey, try our diet while you get back into shape, right? And so as they return back to their normal routine, which is the real reason they have the body they have, right? They're also using this diet, and they can say, oh, look, the diet did it, But yes, technically they were doing the diet, and they lost the weight while they were doing the diet, right? They were doing a whole lot of other stuff. But we'll get more into that, into weight loss. As far as like the mechanical issues, there's a lot of things, especially in fitness, that we have been told kind of growing up we're born with, like flat feet. It used to be able to get you out of the armed forces and everything like that. I don't know if it still does, because it's totally fixable. It's an easy little thing, and we're talking about, as we talk about, lay people call it muscle memory. A term for it is neuromuscular patterning. movements that you do a lot get in there. Now, with your knees and doing the soccer thing, you were at great risk, right? But there's a lot of this, especially with younger people, and if you're training or doing anything with younger people in athletics, you run into this, is they don't do the protective stuff because they don't feel the need for it, because their knees don't hurt them when they go to bed or get up in the morning, right? That won't happen for a few decades, right? I've mentioned this a lot well, people did it in yoga, and they've done yoga for thousands of years. It's like, yeah, well, generally speaking, people didn't live long enough to see their knees degenerate. So they had no idea the idea that doing bad stuff to your knees could harm it. So these are all good things to kind of think about, and it's also why we kind of focus in on basics and all that kind of stuff. Michael, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I actually come into this from the complete opposite side, whereas you guys, were in shape when you were younger, got out of a regular physical activity, and they're essentially getting back into the saddle. I never was the most physically fit. I was your stereotypical nerdy fat kid. So I'm actually probably in the best physical shape I've been in my life. I'm probably lighter now than I was in high school. But with my lifestyle choices when I was younger, plus my sedentary job and general lifestyle, as I'm now in my 30s, I've got these issues that are cropping up. I have issues with my hip flexor that I had to visit a massage therapist for a while. I actually do have flat feet and the duck toe thing that Celine mentioned, as well as type 2 diabetes. So it's stuff that with more regular physical activity, I'm working to manage and correct as much as I can. But yeah, it's by no means insurmountable, but it has been a bit of a challenge, and there have been cases where I've lapsed and just haven't done anything for a while, and then have to get back into that groove.
Yes, definitely, and it's good that you're on here, because I'm glad, because there's a lot of I think there's a lot of people out there like you who this may be their first real experience with a physical culture, so to speak. For my part, when I was a kid, I had asthma. I still have asthma, but it's not much of a problem anymore. But so I had the asthmatic nerd kid, geek. I was more of a geek freak kind of kid, than a nerd. I wasn't, as you can probably tell, entirely blessed in the brains department. But the thing about, hopefully, the sabering is going to do is that it does something that I think is really important, I think, for all of society right now, which is it kind of wraps exercise up into, so it's not exercise, it's just activity, right? It's fun to play with the saber. It's fun to do all that kind of stuff. And then if you're into the martial arts part about it, right, you have a whole other layers. You can do the fun stuff and swing it around and have the fun, but you also have this other layer of, I get to study this now too. I get to see what's happening in here, and I get to think of things in grander terms, and all of that to help myself kind of go on. But also, I think you provide a good segue here, Michael, because whereas we're talking about fitness level, just what I used to be able to do, and all this other kind of stuff, probably you guys aren't below average fitness level here in America. You might probably be a little bit higher, sad as that may be. But when you're coming from nothing, right, you have no experience of what's going to happen to you, right? You don't know what it feels like when you start losing lots of weight, and now your body has different dynamics, right? people don't think about that, right? as you lose weight, right, the shape of your body changes, right? Your Not only does your weight, where it's gonna be easier for you to do stuff and move through space because you have less weight, less inertia, right? A lot of people, they find they also are starting to lose strength, because before they had a lot of inertia behind them when they went to push something or move something or lift something, and now they don't have that. So now there's a new dynamic that comes in there. Most people are not even cognizant that that's happening, and a lot of injuries happen at that point. But also, the fitness thing aside, you mentioned type 2 diabetes, but obesity, type 2 diabetes, all of these health issues, right, when they are compounded, become more than just fitness issues, right? These become, if they aren't treated, or if they aren't, you aren't aware of them, can become, in certain cases like diabetes, life-threatening. You can have life-threatening episodes and all of that kind of thing. Of course, if left untreated, we've luckily come a long way. But the weight loss thing is a thing. And also, I want to, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, being pre-diabetic, these are all terms you might have thrown out at you if a doctor's ever told you that. The number one thing you should do is talk to your doctor, ask him for his advice if what you're doing is necessarily going to be okay for what you're doing, right? I can't do that, and I can't give general advice about that specific of a thing, because everybody's going to be different. You have to talk with your doctor if you have any other outstanding health issues. Please be seeing a medical professional, because if something happens to you while you're training, which it will, you need to have somebody to go to that can tell you what's going on, especially if you're learning in this milieu where you don't have a teacher over you. And, well, I mean, like, none of my teachers knew any medicine. They never knew any anatomy or anything like that. So when I got injured, they do what they knew how to do, right? Sometimes it would work, sometimes not. But so that's important, because even just saying something like eat less, exercise more is too simplistic a thing to say. And there can be unforeseen consequences if somebody just kind of willy-nilly starts messing with their diet intake and activity level unobserved, right? So that if something, however remote, happens, right, the person can be arrested before it becomes a problem. And there's different stuff like that. But weight loss is probably the most common thing that drives people to exercise, right? And not just weight loss as in size loss, right? That used to be the thing, where weight loss meant size loss, right? I want to look slimmer. Now people are looking more at the health metrics, getting your cholesterol down, getting your BMI down, all of these things to put us into what we can, which are statistically relevant kind of groups of lower risk, right? Like quitting smoking or something like that. The problem is that all of our biology has evolved to allow us to gain weight very, very easily, right? The survival trait, even up to maybe just 1,000 years ago for the human species, was the person, probably even earlier, was, are you able to efficiently store fat and then use it later? And that's great if you're living a lifestyle that uses that energy, right? Our lifestyle nowadays does not quite use that energy, but our biology has not changed to adapt to this new lifestyle yet. So we have terrible problems with obesity. And a lot of it has to do with ratio of activity and exercise, and if you're just talking about weight, it's going to be calories burnt, or anything like that. Um, it gets confusing when you start talking about nutrients, because different nutrients do different things, in different contexts. So there's no real one answer on that one. I'm not at all an expert or even very knowledgeable in the whole nutrition end of things. I know enough working knowledge to get me through training and all of that kind of thing. But weight loss is very, very difficult. In the state. I don't know if any of you, other than Michael, had to deal with that kind of, the weight loss thing, because as you lose weight, you do feel better, right? You are using more energy, and your body feels less burdened. And for guys, it's very, very important, because fat collects on our organs much more readily than it does on females. So when you see guts and that kind of thing, that means there's a significant amount of fat probably inside where we don't want it. So those are the things. I don't know. Does anybody want to chime in on that, or have anything so far?
I can just maybe mention one thing as far as leaving soccer. As far as I was concerned, this might be more of a women's thing, but I actually noticed that I lost weight, most noticeably about a year after leaving soccer. But some of that might have been like muscle loss, because if you're losing a lot, but don't have a huge, I guess, caloric intake, maybe.
Well, how much
you tend to drop. Probably 15-ish pounds, maybe a bit more.
Over a period of what?
Over a period of about 6 months to a year. And I just wasn't getting as much exercise, but my diet really didn't change a whole lot. If anything, I was probably less hungry.
Well, that's probably it. That's probably, over a long time, your appetite will adjust, right? To, like, oh, you're not using so much, right? But that really has to do more, like, if you grow up kind of active, or you're in a lot of activity or something like that, your body becomes better at using energy, right? Because it's got more practice at it. So it's not so bad. So when, like, right after you stop. And the other thing too is it also depends on, like, how hard you're training when you're training, right? Like, a lot of people will say, well, I'm gaining weight now because I'm in a different job, right? I was standing up at a counter, and now I'm sitting down at a desk. And the thing about it is yes, the standing at the counter has, generally speaking, more caloric value, or more exercise involved with it, more activity involved with it. But after about 2 weeks, your body has become completely adapted to those activities, which means you're getting no more benefit in those areas, right? So if you do something for long enough, over and over and over again, without changing it, without trying to alter it or anything like that, what will happen is you will trigger general adaptation syndrome. Your body says, okay, we're going to be called on to do this a lot, so we got to get really good at it. And so it gets really good at it. And then, so, like in a gym, if you ever work in a gym, you will know that there are people that come in all the time religiously and never look any different. They don't seem to be making any progress one way or the other. And they're working out hard, they're sweating, they're getting it done, but they just can't quite do that. And one of those things is the general adaptation syndrome. I think the P90X kind of the gimmick there is that it's supposed to avoid that by, I think it calls it body confusion or something. So I'm not really that familiar with it or whatever, but that's essentially what it is. So I've mentioned this a whole lot before of taking layoffs from different activities, and like you said, Michael, sometimes you get to the point where you just drop it. My suggestion in your case, especially Michael, and especially anybody who's in that same position, where this is the first thing you're doing it kind of on your own, all that, is when you feel like you're fed up and you can't deal with sabering anymore, go do something else, but make it active, right? Take a dance class, but do something new, something that you have to learn, right? So that you get that aspect of it. Now I can ask all of you here, have you guys noticed that when you first learn an exercise, right, you've memorized it and everything like that, but when you first start doing it, you get tired way quicker, and then as you practice it and the longer you go on, then all of a sudden you're not getting tired with it anymore, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely
definitely.
right.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So when we're drilling the techniques and going through there, we're getting so good at doing them that it takes us very, very little energy, and therefore we up our training, right? Oh, okay, it's there. But that's only, and I don't. Let's not confuse things here. I'm not talking about technically, like technique-wise. This is only activity-wise, only in a weight loss, context. Right now we'll talk about injury here in a moment, but because that's a whole different thing. So yeah, you want to, you see that, you can feel that, right? That it's much, much easier to do. Well, if it feels that much easier and you can do it much, much longer, well, number one, it tells you you're doing better at it, but number two, it means you're not getting the same kind of metabolic benefit that you were before. That's not a bad thing. What you do is now it's time to look at something new. All right? So when you first start doing something, as you learn it, it takes a lot of energy. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. It's not going to know which pathway to choose, so it's going to choose a bunch of them and switch and go back and forth, and you don't know what's going on. All right. If you're standing on a boat and it's in rough water, you become very tired just standing there, just because you have to correct yourself and all of that. So if you're looking, to kind of do that, you do want to do things to the point for technique that they're effortless and all that. But if you're looking to change your body, you need to find ways to continually up that. But don't get too crazy with it. Like, this is why I'm not a huge fan of the P90X, because the P90X, it seems to me to be a little bit more geared towards people who are already fit, or at least a little already fit, and that's just my opinion. Like I said, I haven't worked with it, I haven't done anything with it, so I guess it doesn't mean a whole lot. But anyway, yes, so that's just one little aspect, is the energy use part of it. Obviously, eating better is definitely good for weight loss. I am not going to give you diet advice. I'm not going to pretend that there is any universal diet advice. Do it carefully. Check with your doctor. Try to get a healthier level of exercise. Now, we can kind of transition into also some of the other benefits of just general exercise, and strenuous exercise like martial arts, is that pretty much anything that you're doing to yourself while you're exercising is going to be increased. So, like medications, they saw that medications, especially antidepressants, right, would work better at lower doses the more strenuous activity people got, to the point where strenuous exercise actually performed better than SSRIs, right? Which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, they're a type of antidepressant, right? So they showed that exercise and strenuous exercise, like, getting stuff in there. And if anybody's done any sabering, even like a performance, right, it's a lot of work, right? But you kind of have to keep that up. So it will have effects on your mental well-being as well, right? And that will kind of bring us here into this next bit, which is mental fitness, because physical challenges are exacerbated by kind of mental ideas here. So as you go, if you're overweight and you're trying to lose weight and you're not, and it's not happening the way you expect, we're going to get discouraged, and then that's going to start a kind of ball of kind of learned helplessness, as I had just learned this idea before. So again, like we said, take it easy, move back and forth, but keep the activity up and try to integrate it into what you're doing. But it can have effects on other things. Diabetes, insulin resistance, cholesterol, all of these things are seen to be incredibly affected by strenuous exercise. Even the balances tend to go out there. Basically, what we figured out is that your body works better when it's being used, and used heavily. And so that's kind of the whole point. I will stop here and welcome our knight, Jeff Macklin. How you doing, Jeff? He's muted there, but I assume he's okay. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. No, I was. How's it going, everybody?
Very good, very good. Welcome.
Sorry about that. I get out of work around 7 o'clock, so I just got in, and we're getting like massive thunderstorms here. So if my internet cuts out, I apologize. It's because of the rain.
Yeah, we're getting the same thing.
Yeah. So hello. I don't know what's been discussed so far, but yeah, I'd love to kind of plug in wherever we are at this point in time. I kind of just heard Chad talking about how movement is kind of the key to things. Your body likes to be used. And I work in physical therapy, so one of the things I tell my patients all the time, man, is we found the fountain of youth, and it's movement. It's functional movement. And as long as you're functionally moving and doing it constantly, you're going to stay younger. It's just the way that science works. So
yeah,
that's just the basics.
Yep. And it goes back to that same thing, like we were talking about with the weight loss. Why it's so hard is because of general adaptation syndrome, and it's difficult to keep that level of caloric expenditure up if you're just doing it by yourself, because all of a sudden you start getting better at what you're doing and you start losing it. So you have to, yes, the more you use it, the younger you'll be, because basically general adaptation syndrome works the other way. It's going to adapt to this level of exercise that you're putting on, right? Rather than adapting to the sedentary lifestyle where it's doing this, it's going to adapt the other way. And quite frankly, that's kind of the way we're meant to adapt, right? We do really well going that way. We do poorly going that way. Even though we go faster the other way, this way is slower, this way is faster, this way is better, and it's generally how we're set up to work.
One of the things I like to talk to my patients about is the body is a lazy organism. It wants to be neutral. That's all it wants, and it doesn't want to work hard. We have to make it work hard. And the only way you can do that is through just general willpower. And the systems don't communicate as well as we'd like them to. I mean, when we injure ourselves, the body just wants to repair it. It doesn't care how it repairs it. It just wants to repair it. So it'll lay down scar tissue in whatever way it needs to lay it down, but sometimes that includes directions that the tissue is not regularly pulled. So you get weird injuries because you've injured it in some random way, and the body's just trying to fix it. It doesn't ask the muscles, well, which way do you pull the scar tissue? Which way do you need me to pull this thing, man? I'm gonna lay this stuff down here. Where do you want me to pull it? It just lays it down. So sometimes you get scar tissue that looks like a basket weave where it needs to be kind of laid down like this. And so, that's why, again, like you've said, and like I just said a minute ago, movement's the key. As long as you're moving, you're not going to lay that tissue down in a weird way. You're going to constantly be asking the muscles to pull that tissue. Even though you're injured, it doesn't mean you need to push yourself, but you still need to move. And
right. And actually, we can go right into injury now, too, because that'd be a good place to go. Because that's the other thing is when I was saying this, and if you're just starting out and you have no experience, your first injury, it can feel like a career ender, right? Especially if you're not used to being injured. Well, for example, I'll throw it out here. I know, Jeff, you and I have been injured more than we've not been injured, but you three here, the apprentices, any big injuries in your past? Or significant injuries?
I remember that I was doing a mountain run, and I twisted my ankle pretty good. Good enough that they put me on crutches for 3.5 weeks. I couldn't run. And getting back into it, the doctor cleared me to go ahead and start running again. And I went from having a 23-minute 3-mile to a 30-minute 3-mile. And I'm like, this is unacceptable. I mean, the Marine Corps standard is 27 minutes. You can't make it. You're out. So I thought I was going to get rolled out because I couldn't run anymore. And it just took a matter of huge effort to push and push and push, and to just hold the nose to the grindstone. But it mentally crushes you to think, oh my God, I have this injury and I can't do it anymore. But I want to do it. I want to do it so bad, and it just drives you to do better, or it breaks you one way or the other. It's that mental point where you have to choose: do you really want to commit to it?
Yeah, that's one. How about anybody else
I'm relatively lucky. Most of my injuries were fairly minor, mostly again in soccer times, just because I was a goalie for a short time. I had a few things like broken fingers, but going to do something as basic as pick up a mug or a glass or whatever and have a drink, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, can just be very frustrating, because you just casually take a sip of whatever and then you're pawing and clawing at it because your finger is broken and it's bound and you can't use your hand properly.
True. Michael, have you had any in your past?
Nothing major, at least nothing that affected my physical activity at the time, mainly because my physical activity level was pretty low. But I had broken my left wrist as a child. I dropped a pallet of sheet metal onto my foot, onto my heel, which chipped the bone. I was on crutches for a couple of weeks. That's about it as far as any major physical injuries aside from pulled muscles or things like that. So, like Selena, I've been quite fortunate in avoiding any major injuries.
Yeah. So that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind, because when you get a martial arts injury, oftentimes they're definitely something. And if you get a more serious one, right? Anybody been hit in the face so hard they bled? Right. Okay. Until that's happened to you, there's nothing really that anybody can do to prepare you for it. You know, you're like boom, like what? You know, so yeah, and you know, it doesn't even have to be on purpose, you know, but the shock that you're so fragile, you know, and all that, especially if it's your first thing. A lot of times, and then pain, you know, there's going to be pain, you know, and a lot of times that happens. Like, well, okay, well, let's take, and you can jump in here, Jeff, because I know you'll have experience with this. Like, Robert, when you twisted your ankle and you're on crutches for that time, that allowed the tissues of the ankle to heal, right? But you have to remember that your nervous system knows that you injured your ankle. So it has been changing everything to keep it okay, right? So when you started going, it was actually down, your body was actually down regulating your speed, basically saying, nah, you can't run that fast. We don't know if this thing's all right, right? And this is what I tell this to a lot of people when I see them like holding dumbbells and punching, right? Because that's really stupid. You're not going to make yourself faster or stronger. You're going to do the opposite, because you're just training your body to punch with a very rigid arm, you know, when it should just be real loose and whack. But same type of thing. So your body will downregulate and change what it does when it's injured to protect that injury. So what you do when you're injured is very, very important. The number one thing you should not do when you're injured is completely stop moving. Even though that has been like the doctor's standby since, you know, forever, you know, just take. In fact, there was some journal just wrote an article on it saying the most common back advice when you have an injured back is the worst back advice you can take, which is go home and rest, right?
Yep.
You want to protect your back, right? So you want to find out how you injured it and not do that, right? But
the thing that, I'll throw this in there, the thing that I tell my patients a lot of times is the doctors just don't want you to call them. So we have people all the time who have shoulder surgery, and it was very warranted. The shoulder surgery really needed to happen, but the doctor puts them in a sling, tells them, don't move your arm for 6 weeks. And then our job, when they finally come to us, is drastically harder because the doctor basically told them, I don't want you to call me for 6 weeks, so don't move it because it's going to hurt if you do. Instead of sitting the patient down and educating them, you know what, if you just move it a little bit and kind of get things moving a little, it's going to be a lot easier to do all that physical therapy that I'm about to send you to. But instead, a lot of times the healthcare industry just wants you to leave them alone. So that advice that Chad was talking about, go home and rest it. That's because they don't want you to call them back when it starts to hurt again. Getting things better causes them to hurt.
yeah, I think I wouldn't, I mean, that's probably true in some cases, but I think there's a couple of other reasons. Number one, your doctor probably had one exercise science class back in med school, and that's it. All right? That's how much education. He's a doctor, yes, and he probably is a good doctor. But any good doctor is going to know the limits of their knowledge. My doctor never gives me any of that stuff, any of that advice, because he just says, "Well, you know more about this than I do." So he just, here's what's wrong with you. I trust you know what to do with that, you know. And if I ask him, like when I hurt my back and everything I tried didn't work, right? Because that's another thing too. When you're injured and you're trying to get better, if you don't get better, especially quickly, it's horrible, right? And especially, I mean, for me, going through half a year where I was an invalid, practically, and I don't look like an invalid, but I was in such agonizing pain during that thing. I had to go to a doctor, took care of me, took the physical therapy, and now I'm back, you know, back there. But I'm still recovering from that. You know, that one little herniation right in that SI joint, and you know, just that much. So so there's that, and then another thing is exercise. Most of what we know about exercise science is really new. Like even if they went to med school, and are a doctor, there's no telling if they had access in their classes to the information that we're now working on, right? In this particular case.
Some of us at the clinic that we went to actually just got back from a big seminar with a lot of the guys that actually wrote those sports medicine textbooks. I mean, these are like top of the field guys. It was down in Florida, and I mean they are the people to go to, and surgeons, PTs, all of them. And they were talking about how they're still finding stuff now that like they don't do. Like we just quit doing that last year because we found that it doesn't work. And
right.
Everything is still very experimental. So even though they know a lot, they're still finding out a lot. I mean, there's a lot for us to get into, and so there's a huge field out there that's still being experimented with. Physical therapy is only 60 years old.
Right, and here, but we're kind of on a tangent here. The point is, there are times when you shouldn't move it, and if your doctor says don't move your shoulder, don't move your shoulder. But there are ways that you can get around it. For instance, best little thing I've gotten for shoulder surgery, right? U of M here has really good everything here, so we've got kind of like the best people. So things like where people just kind of don't do anything with it, because it's not really that they don't want you to call you, but I think a lot of doctors are afraid. If I tell this person to do something little, they're just going to go back to what they're doing regular and pull that thing right out, and then I have to fix it again. So I see where you're coming from there, but the like with the shoulder, squeezing a ball, right? Your grip is connected to your shoulder, and your grip are kind of the same thing neurologically, right?
Absolutely.
So one thing that a shoulder surgeon that I know has his patients do the moment they're able, right? They don't move their shoulder because they have to, the sutures, all that kind of stuff. He has them squeeze a racquetball while in the sling. You have to squeeze this racquetball. Keep squeezing it. Do not stop squeezing it, right? And that stops the degeneration of the muscles right there, right? That's when Jeff says his job is much more difficult when he gets people who have rested. It's because your muscles atrophy very quickly when you stop moving, right? When you stop using them, your body says, well, this is just extra weight. Let's burn it for calories. And there it goes, right? So
and the body will actually convert it into connective tissue. So it will become a ligament and not a muscle, or a tendon, rather, not a muscle. And it will just completely atrophy to nothing. If you put your arm in a sling for 2 years, all of the muscles that hold it there would just completely atrophy out to connective tissue. And that's why the body gets harder to move if you don't move it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law actually did a whole bunch of research into adiposity and muscle loss and stuff like that. And yeah, the protein of your muscles will just because that's one of your energy things, and it's ketosis, right? When you start your body switches over to taking your muscle to feed a system. That's another reason why you don't want to do starvation diets or do anything of this like really crazy stuff, because then you start those processes. You just you just don't want to deal with that. Just take your time, do it nice and natural. But yeah, the injury thing, you will atrophy, you will become weaker, and your body will not let you do the things that it was previously allowing you to do.
Don't be afraid of injury. It's
Right.
going to happen. If you do martial arts long enough, you're going to get injured. If you don't get injured, you're not doing it right. It's just going to happen. So arming yourself with the proper ways of recovering is the best thing in the world.
Yep, and trying to minimize the amount of injury that you get. Like, we can't do anything to minimize traumatic injury. That happens, right? And it's pretty much out of our control. But overuse injury and these things where like our knees are giving out, or like you were talking about your feet, all of these little alignment things that it's like driving to California with your wheels out of alignment. After a while, it's sure you can get to the store and back, but you go that far, problems are going to happen. So yeah, I mean, ask around, but take it slow. Don't get discouraged. You will get injured, right? And when you're injured, take care of the injury. I like the walking on the crutches because I sprained my ankle a couple of years back, really bad. We were practicing just techniques, and I throwing a side kick. Somebody was supposed to take me down, and so I fed him the side kick. He took me down, but my heel got caught in between the mats, right? So my foot stayed there, and then my body fell, right? It sounded like a head of lettuce being ripped in half.
Yeah.
Swole up to like a grapefruit. I seriously thought I broke it, right? I didn't, and it was only a level 1. But I mean, that one I forced myself to be on crutches for a week, right? And I'm telling you, I recovered from that sprained ankle quicker than any other sprained ankle I've ever had, right? Just being able to allow the tissues to heal. I didn't stop activity, right? But I certainly didn't start jumping on that thing, But, so you do want to, rest the injury and not do what you did to the injury. And if you had surgery, that's a whole different thing. Follow your doctor's orders like that. But, unless it's something like you've had both hips replaced, or you're in traction, something where you're completely immobilized, do something. Walk. Get around. Do a couple of squats. Dance to some music. Anything. Don't sit there and convalesce.
What we like to tell our patients at the clinic is pain is your guide, and you've got to understand the different types of pain. There's the pain you have from deconditioning. Oh man, this muscle's just not strong enough to do this, and that pain, it can be pushed through a little bit. And then there's that pain of, man, I've done a lot of reps, and maybe I need to back off a little bit, but that's not really an injury pain. An injury pain is a pain that's going to hit you at 4 or 5 out of 10, and it's going to be in this exact spot. It's exactly localized to this spot here. That's an injury pain, and that's what makes you call the doctor. And that's the type of pain that you stop the activity on. You just quit. You let your body just recover from that type of injury, whatever you caused, and let it relax. We get a lot of runners in our clinic, and they just tend to keep going. It kind of hurt 4 or 5 out of 10. I just kept running for the next 4 miles. And then they come in with a tendinopathy or something where the tendons just completely regressed to nothing. And that's where you've got to learn to kind of gauge your pain level, and you don't necessarily have to completely stop. You just have to back it off. It's not like a light switch. It's more like a throttle. Back it off a little bit, bring it down some. That's the biggest thing that we tell our patients. Let pain be your guide. Do what you want. Do something. But if it hurts, back it off.
Yeah, definitely. If it hurts, back it off. But also be careful about pain, because some people have a very high pain tolerance. So I tell them, don't do this if it hurts. It's like, well, I can do this and it doesn't really hurt, but well, to most people that would hurt.
Exactly. and I'll interject this too, because I fall in this category. I don't hurt at the moment. I'll hurt the next day. So if I do something incorrectly or if I do something wrong, I don't get pain that's acute. I get that residual pain when I wake up the next day and go, man, I can't turn my head to the right. And then I have to remember what I did the day before. And that still counts. That still counts as pain on the activity that you did. And
yes, that's a different that's a different type of pain, and that will happen as you get better. Like as we because we've been doing this for a very, very long time, right? So one of the things our bodies does is it says you're injured, so we're just going to push that over to the side until you can deal with it, right? And so while we're teaching and everything like that, it's like, oh, yep, okay, I felt it, but I can't stop. I got to keep going, all that stuff. Wake up, you're like, oh, boy, I should not have done that.
Usually it's 3 o'clock in the morning when you shift in bed and go, what the hell was that?
Yeah, right.
Why?
Right. Oh no, and totally. Like my back was much worse because, and this is the problem, like herniations, nuclear herniations of your disc. Um, I felt it happen, right? I felt the instant that it happened. Okay. I recovered from that, right? And I just went back to my normal routine. Problem is that I had herniated something. You're not going to feel that right away because it has to work its way out to create a bulge to put pressure on your nerve, and that can be weeks down the road. And so that's what started happening to me. I started getting light pain. That's odd. So I just stretch it out and everything like that. Turns out everything that I was doing to fix it was just exacerbating it because I had no idea what was going on. So these are all things. That's all very confusing, I know. But that's the thing. You don't want to be afraid of the injury, right? You want to be protective against the injury. And that's why we give all of this advice to go slow, to work on your technique, to work on your breathing, work on your footwork, keep things very, very simple, right? Because you need to be mindful of what you're doing when you're doing it so this doesn't happen, especially if, like you, Michael, where you're coming new into this. And so there's a lot of stuff may happen to you. You'll be like, oh my God, so you'll have to ask somebody, has this ever happened to you? And they'll go, oh, yeah. So, kind of like my first foray with plantar fasciitis. If anybody's ever had that, it's like all of a sudden the bottom of my heel mysteriously felt like somebody took a ball-peen hammer and broke it. Right. Couldn't walk. I mean, and I have no idea, where it came from or whatever. I fixed it, but still, those sensations, they're very, very weird. Don't necessarily be afraid of them, right? Because they're going to happen. They're just going to happen. Okay. So anyway, Jeff, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to put in here?
Not a huge one. I don't know if it's been discussed so far, but it'll be something. I'll throw something out there. I tell my students, I tell my patients, I tell anybody who's active. Like we just said a minute ago, you're going to get hurt. Everything has a price. Whether you're a marathoner, a martial artist, a tennis player, whatever. If you do an activity that requires a lot of the tissues of your body, you're going to get injured, and it's going to be a price you have to pay. You could be one of those lucky people that never ever has an issue, but one day an invoice will come due, and it will show up at your heel or your low back or your neck or your shoulder or something, and you're going to have to pay that price. So whatever activity you're doing, you just have to determine if what you're doing is worth that price. It doesn't mean don't do anything. It just means be cautious and be smart about what you do. Yes,
absolutely. I wanted to read one little thing here we got from YouTube here, from Darth Arescu. I hope I pronounced that correctly there. He says, 4 years ago, I lost a lot of weight through an illness called hypothyroidism. At my lightest, I weighed about 83 kilograms. After my treatment, I took time off of work and became sedentary. Within 3 years, I went from 83 kilos to 129 kilos. It affected me so much that I found it hard to exercise. Through dieting, I've lost 33 pounds and in the last 6 months, but now I need to start inducing more exercise into my daily routine. Aside from the face-to-the-wall squats, what other exercises would you recommend? Because I want to get back into martial arts and into sabering. I'll throw this out to everybody, but I'll just say quickly right off, start with the Shicho stuff, just doing the stuff in the primer. Nice basic stuff. You can string it into fun little exercises and kind of work from there. I'll be putting out some more stuff. Push-ups are always awesome, but I'll definitely put out a push-up thing, and I'm sure Jeff and some of the other masters and knights will want to chime in on that guys there. So that would be my recommendation. Jeff?
Yeah, if you can, I don't know where you're located, but if you can find somebody in your area who doesn't charge an arm and a leg to show you some stuff, a personal trainer or exercise physiologist, exercise scientist, somebody who can show you something, they will, if it's a good one, they will set you up with a routine that you can take and do on your own. They'll see you every once in a while just to check in on you, but if it's somebody that wants to hammer you once a week with a charge, go somewhere else. But try and find somebody, find a buddy, get somebody else to help you out. It's always easier to start and maintain this stuff with somebody else.
Absolutely. Very good advice. All right, from some of the apprentices on the other angle, do you have any advice coming from the learner's perspective? Anybody can jump in there.
I know that the fitness center I'm currently a member of, they have trainers there, and they are part of the membership fee, so you just get with them and ask them questions. I mean, you don't have to be under the tutelage of a trainer to do that.
This is true. Yep. Michael, you wanted to say something? I saw you.
Yeah, one thing that we do regularly with River City Jedi when we go through our training classes is after our initial warm-up run, one of our instructors, who's a competitive fencer, she actually takes us through a number of yoga poses and stretches. So for things like balance or general flexibility, that's another thing that would come in really handy, especially with. I think there was a thread on the Facebook group where I suggested, try going through the accelerations to a beat count and to strengthen those stabilizer muscles, and yoga also helps a lot with that.
Yep. You can also we do a practice called Tenzhuang, or stance keeping, where if you hold do back rider, and you call Mabu, right? That probably is better than anything. Oh, I should probably mention this before I'll get to you here, Celine. Is whatever anybody tells you, don't do sit-ups or crunches. Okay. Go ahead.
I guess the biggest advice I would tell anybody, getting over an injury, trying to get into shape, is you just try something. Because at first, you have a lightsaber as a toy and woo, show it off to your friends, but just try it. That's how I got into TPLA, was just, what the heck, I'll see what this is about and try it, and it'll get you up and moving. And if it's not sabering, I know just in my kendo club, Big Oscar, when he first started out, he felt really, because he was so, big guy, he felt kind of lumbering, and he felt like he was looking kind of silly, but, kept saying, keep coming back, keep doing it. And now he says he feels like he can dance again, and, makes all kinds of jokes. And, it's, even if, as you mentioned before, Master, the mental fitness, if anything, that seems to be worth it. And also, one other thing I just remembered is a few friends, they're talking about getting back into shape, and the first thing that they mentioned was, let's go together, because, not only do you have a spotter if you're doing weights, but it's better than to just be at this kind of solo, you're on your own at the grindstone, whereas now you're with a friend, you're having fun, it's social, and you're supporting each other and building each other up to do more.
Yep. Very good. All right. Well, we're a little bit over here, but that's it for us tonight. Thanks to our panel here. Thanks to anybody who came in. Thank you, Darth Rescue, for your question, and I'm glad we got to it. So, from everybody else here at Terra Prime, have a great weekend and happy sabering.